say.
Okay. Like to call the June 10th meeting to order. First order of business is the meeting minutes, which were distributed via email and were available online. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second? Okay, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Triol,
Yes.
Mr. Holker,
Yes.
Mr. Fox. Mr. Floyd.
Yes.
Motion carries.
In your packet is the monthly transactions for May, account balances, and list of transactions, and happy to answer any questions on any of those.
And again, as we discussed, the reimbursements for property taxes have come this week. We'll
Yep.
have a fuller presentation next month.
Yes, yep, they should, settlement should be issued Wednesday, and then month we can do a report on where we're falling halfway through the year.
Thanks. Surprisingly few expenditures, so nothing surprising in them that I saw.
Next item is resolution 2025-07 regarding fiscal matters. This resolution appropriates the reimbursements we've received from Amazon to date, totaling about $20 million. And then also in January, during that budget presentation, I had mentioned we'd gone over Northwest Cleveland. It was omitted from the actual resolution. So these are numbers from that presentation appropriating or just cleaning up and making official that appropriation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution 2025-07?
So moved.
Second.
You?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Triol,
Aye.
Mr. Holker,
Aye.
Mr. Fox. Aye. Mr. Jordan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, the next two items on the agenda are professional service agreements for acquisition appraisals for two parcels. The parcels addresses are 26500 State Road 2, 2655 Quince Road. We're asking to have these properties appraised. The first appraisal is from Appraisal Services, Inc. at a cost of $750. The reason we're asking for these to be appraised now is because we were recently made aware that these properties were going to be listed for sale. And by going through the process now, we'll save with acquisition costs for relocations and other items. These properties will be held for future intersection improvements at State Road 2 and Quince. Bill was going to add a little bit detail on regards to that.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. So over the last couple of months, we've been working with NDOT on the 2 and Larison project. That's obviously the big project out in the New Carlisle area. As part of that project, we also then have to do, in partnership with the state, improvements at 2 in Timothy, 2 in Tulip, 20 in Smilax, and 20 in Tulip. Those will also be improvements that'll be done about the same time frame in that 2027 time range. But as part of a conversation we had Friday with NDOT, there's an opportunity to add 2 in Quince to that project list. 2 in Quince currently has it's a signalized intersection, the only signalized intersection in that corridor. Horrible intersection, needs massive improvement. We had an opportunity with this property owner that came forward and said, hey, we're thinking about getting rid of the property. The corner property, there's 2 properties here. The one on the corner is actually vacant. There's a rental house behind it. The renter is out. The property owner has to put some significant funds into, apparently they had a bad renter, need to upgrade the house, don't really want to upgrade the house. So this would be an opportunity to buy one of the parcels at that intersection that will be needed at some point. So this is kind of an opportunity. This is a big picture, 40,000 foot acquisition type thing. So again, we want to get a number, see if there's an opportunity to make a deal here, but we think this is a good one in advance of this very important project to move forward. So.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Triol,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Fox. Aye. Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Okay, so the next item would be for the same parcels. We always get two appraisals. So the second appraisal professional service proposal is from Iverson Grove to appraise those properties at a cost of $1,000. Any questions? I'd be happy to elaborate, or Mr. Shelley would be happy to elaborate.
But just curious, I mean, that's, while it's only $250, it's a pretty high percent difference between the two. Are we ever able to negotiate with that, or is this just what do we think that seems like one's quite a bit lower than the other? I know it's not a lot.
So I would tell you on an average, if we looked at these two appraisers on a regular basis, they often flop. One will be high, one will be low, one will be low, one will be high, just. So I don't know if that, I don't know what caused him to set his value at the price he did this time versus the last time where he would have been the lower number. So one of the things we've contemplated over the years is going to just a kind of an on-call agreement with the appraisers, kind of locking in just a general price range and just having them on call to be able to do it versus coming in every time. We've resisted that because we think it's important that you as the commission know the properties that we're looking to acquire and getting that individual approval every time, so that we've resisted that. We could certainly have a conversation with the appraisers about, how they come up with their price, why is there, kind of that back and forth difference and stuff like that. We can certainly have that conversation.
There's not, as far as I know, a large number of appraisers who could do this work. Is that correct?
We need specific type of certifications. Mr. Garrett had elaborated that earlier. But if we had strictly a residential property,
Correct.
then there would be an opportunity for other individuals.
Any other questions? Their motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second, Mr. Triolo.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Fox. Aye.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is a professional service proposal with JPR. So over the last several months, we've been working with JPR on a number of projects in and adjacent to the town of New Carlisle. About the same time, a couple of months ago, we released a contract with JPR to do the 30% design plans for phase one of the trail project. Phase one of the trail project was a trail segment down Timothy to Dunn Road, ultimately then out to Wintergreen. That was kind of the phase one. And then as we've been working with some private developers, looking at some land east of Timothy, we have had conversations about the opportunity. Maybe this is a opportunity for the redevelopment commission to kind of get ahead of a housing project, get involved in some of the housing projects. We will have some involvement on the project at 20 and Spruce. We'll have some project involvement in some of the other housing projects. This is an opportunity for the redevelopment commission to kind of get involved, help maybe dictate some of the design standards, some of the site layout, some of the development practices, things like that in the project area. We thought this was also an opportunity to consider maybe taking the trail through this new project area, maybe still considering the Dunn Road corridor, but maybe this is a kind of a secondary alternative for the trail system. What we'd like to do is use this opportunity as an opportunity to work with the town of New Carlisle, its staff and team to really come up with a project as it's adjacent to the town and will likely be part of the town at some point. Half of the subdivision sits outside of the town limits, half of it's inside the town limits. There's an opportunity to really do kind of a neat mixed use development project here potentially. It may go all one style, all single family. It may be a mix of types. Again, I think one of the reasons we want to be in on the front end of this though is one of the tool sets that we have is residential TIF, and we've not done a residential TIF district. We've got a couple opportunities. We've had some conversations about it, but never used it yet as a tool set. And with residential TIF, there's a bunch of things. There's like 13 specific items that we can use TIF funds for. Anywhere from utility extensions to road design, road construction, sidewalk construction, trail construction. But there's also opportunities to apply those funds for housing types or housing styles or for green space development within a subdivision. And so because we haven't been on the front end of a project necessarily, this is kind of an opportunity again, because there's some sensitivity to the area, because again, it's half in, half out of the town. We want to see it coordinated with town development. So we think there's an opportunity here, but maybe this takes a little bit extra touch, a little extra care, a little extra planning to really get something that works for everybody. So the proposal here is a proposal from JPR to do just that. It's conceptual planning and technical study planning. The technical study planning would be handled by the developers themselves. What we're asking for is approval of the conceptual planning phase of $54,000. We think this is an opportunity to move neat is maybe an undersell word. We think it's a good opportunity to move a really good project forward, but we want to make sure it's a great project, not just a good project. So that's why we believe that this is an opportunity to kind of get involved in the front end, work with all the players, really spend the time needed to make sure it really blends and integrates and coordinates. So I would ask for your approval of this JPR contract. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Who is EGDB who we're being in partnership with?
Yeah, so EGDB is a partnership of a development group that's based locally, and then Steve Corman would be the other developer that would have the Wintergreen Meadows site. EGDB has not yet bought the property, but is in negotiations to buy the acreage in the front side from Steve Corman or Irish Realty.
And if we develop this, would this be open to any builder? I mean, this is not tied to a specific builder,
No, so this
because I
would
would
be.
want to support.
That's why our work ends kind of at the planning phase. So we would help with the planning design. This is kind of a unique property. The front half is unincorporated. The back half is incorporated into the town. The back half sits on the edge of a wetlands. So there would be some sensitivity and some design considerations there. Opportunity for utility extension, an opportunity for annexation, a lot of different pieces and parts that would play into this. So again, that's, something that we've had lots of conversations about. We think it's kind of a good opportunity to be involved in this kind of on the front end. And again, help to maybe corral and coordinate all the partners in this. Again, generally, we don't do residential housing, but we haven't done residential housing, and that's, kind of where we need to be next. We know we need housing. We know that there's a need for that in not only this area, but countywide. So again, maybe kind of sticking a toe in just to see if this is something that makes sense, and then we kind of move forward from there. So.
Is that development company paying any amount towards this, or it's just?
So they would pay the back half. They would pay the technical study side. So we would pay the kind of the front end planning for not only the front property, but also then how it coordinates so basically from Timothy to Wintergreen, how it all coordinates together. And then, so using Steve Corman's ideas and just kind of putting them all in one place so that we can kind of look at it holistically. And again, coordination with the town on how it fits together with sidewalk connection and pedestrian connection and all the other connectivity pieces.
Again, my standard question then is, we're working with New Carlisle on this.
I would say we will absolutely will, yes.
But
Yep.
again, and then my favorite question lately is, and again, I use them personally, JPR,
Mhm.
is this something we could have gone out to bid?
So because they've been integrated in all the other projects that are adjacent to it, that's why it was just kind of an extension of work that we were already doing in the approximate area. So that's why I chose to just look at JPR. There are other firms that do subdivision planning, but in this particular case, it seemed like a lot of the work was already pre-done. And so it just a continuation of the work.
Again, I don't disagree, but at some point, we've got to start getting
Yep.
some bids on some projects.
Sure.
And this residential, since it's new to us.
Yep.
Would be
And
in
and
there.
again, I think there's some residential developers that do big scale format projects that, I mean, I can think of 2 or 3 that would be a good fit for those kind of projects if we get engaged in those.
Just a couple of questions.
So you see our role really is almost coordinating between the city and the unincorporated and the roles we can play. Kind of getting it started and then we kind of turn it over to the developer as they get pulled together. Is that?
Very, very much kind of that convener role, just, getting everybody at the table and, yeah. And again, I think there may be some asks of us through the redevelopment commission, whether it's through regular TIF or through residential TIF, cost of infrastructure is expensive, cost of some of this. It's parts of the site are pretty flat, parts of it are not. So there'll be some challenges with utility extension. So I think it gives us an opportunity to be on the front end of this and maybe help direct a little bit more of future asks.
Is, this is a tough question, so, but I'll ask it anyway. Is the community supportive of this or not supportive? Or
Well, I think that's part of working through it. So I think,
kind of help facilitate that.
yeah, so I think there's some concerns on the front end. If it's multifamily, how does multifamily fit? If it doesn't end up being multifamily, if it ends up being a combination of both. I think we know that there's a need for housing in the area. So it's how does that work? And this is one of these weird trick spots because part of the site's in the town, part of it's not in the town. So do you do a project on the fringe without town involvement? The town's on 3 or 4 sides of it. So it seems like you have to incorporate all the players. So that's, again, maybe we serve as kind of that convener again. And if the planning says that this doesn't go forward, or we find a natural point where we cut ourselves out of the deal, then we cut ourselves out of the deal.
Thank
Mhm.
I'm confused, Bill. So this says you are 54,000 conceptual. And then there's also 37 for technical, but you said the technical is gonna be paid by
It'd be paid by the other partner. So all I would ask for your approval for today is just the $54,000 per the contract. I wanted you to see the whole contract, to see the different pieces of the work. And then we would just be the conceptual planning phase part of the project. That's all I would ask for your approval for. So I believe there's 2 elements of that.
So should we state that in this or?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, so we would do conceptual master plan and then the final master plan, and then the other elements would be left up to the developers. If the project were to move forward. Those would be elements that they would need as part of their plan approval and other coordination for subdivision planning.
Just one final question.
Mhm.
Is there any chance as the developer moves forward, we get reimbursed for any of our money?
Something we could certainly talk about as part of the layout of the project agreement. Absolutely.
Kind of facilitating this, there should be some.
Yep, we could certainly.
Any other questions? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the conceptual planning phase of $54,000?
So move.
Second.
The motion and a second, Mr. Tyrrell,
Aye.
Mr. Volker,
Aye.
Fox.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And I just want to clarify that just the conceptual planning side of it. Okay, thank you. The next item on your agenda relates to again, partnership with the town of New Carlisle to reimburse for expenses related to utility locates. There's a pretty extensive memo here and I'll work through and just kind of hit the high points. Over the last year, the town of New Carlisle and the county have been talking about how to identify and cover unanticipated expenses. One of those unanticipated expenses are the expenses related to utility locates. The town is required to do utility locates for the water and sewer that they have within their district, more so water probably than sewer, but a lot of locates that they've been required to do. Locates are only good for so long, much like if you call for one in your yard, it only, I think, has a 3-day window before it has to be refreshed, or 4 days. So that's the case here. We have lots of different contractors doing lots of different projects. A lot of those projects are related to either the GM, Samsung project or the AWS project. But then the county also has separate projects, the Edison Road project, some of our lift station projects, some of those other projects that do require a lot of these locate tickets to be called in. There's a list there of how many locates have been done just in the past several months. We believe that number will continue to rise as we get more projects happening. We know that we've got some work on Larison that's going to have to be done. Edison Road is underway right now. We've got some other things done. Now, we've tried to anticipate some of that by, as part of our Edison Road project, putting materials into the bid. So the contractor, as part of the project, was required to buy a certain amount of materials that were then turned over to the town or will be turned over to the town. That included things like paint and flags and markers and posts and things like that. Again, supplies that we knew that were needed. That's a contract actually being paid for by AWS, the Edison Road project. So in effect, it wasn't the county picking up those costs, it's AWS picking up those costs as part of the project. Again, what we'd like to do here is work out a reimbursement to the town for the first half of the year. And then we're in the process of working on a road agreement to cover costs related to road projects. That would be a partnership with AWS. And we would anticipate putting the rest of these locate costs into that contract as we move forward here. But what we're asking for is for the county to pay to the town a sum of where we go, $42,433.80 for this first part of the year. So from basically the first of the year through June 1st to cover cost. And then we'll coordinate on the rest of the cost as we move forward. But again, we think this is one of these unintended consequences of the work that we're doing in the area, and it's a cost that needs to get absorbed somewhere. And so we'd ask for your consideration of approval of this proposal to make this reimbursement to the town. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. There are members of the town utility group here, if there's any questions of them specifically.
I have no problem reimbursing them on a going forward basis. Is there a private company that could do it, or is there a way we gain efficiencies? Because these are just going to keep happening.
Right.
And it's not fair for the town to bear the cost, but
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things the town's going to have to consider. Is that something they keep in-house? There's the 311, there's some other services that do those kind of locate services. So I think that's something the town's going to need to work through as far as how they budget for this. Again, this is kind of one of these unintended budget items. You don't expect this at the beginning of the year to have this as a budget cost. And so we're trying to help soften some of that in the short term and then look at a long-term solution as we move forward. So.
I would think also that this is kind of the peak construction, so it might,
We would hope that it
lower.
would start to, this Edison Road project's gonna be maybe a little more intensive because we're pulling out a whole road and we're putting in new utilities. And so that may be a little more intensive. And then Larison is gonna be more surface coating versus pavement removal. So we should get to a point, but then we have the interchange project coming up. And so how does the interchange relate to some of that? So I would hope that we're either at the top of the peak or nearing it so that we can hit the other side of it and move forward. But at least we have an opportunity now to know that this is a cost that needs to be figured out for budget cycles next year, or however this, again, gets covered in the future.
any other questions? None. Is there a motion to approve?
so moved.
A second.
The motion and a second, Mr. Trillo.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. John.
Aye.
Mr. Clement.
Yes.
Carried.
If you're bid tab sheet.
So the next item on the agenda is the opening of a bid for property for disposition at 56120 Larison Boulevard. This is a property owned by the Redevelopment Commission at the southeast corner of Fillmore and Larison Boulevard. The property was put out for disposition. The last Redevelopment Commission meeting, we've done the proper advertisement. We've received notice of the advertisements. So what we would do today is receive bids and then consider bids. And at this point in time, we have one bid that we have received. I would ask if there's any additional bids for properties Please bring it forward. Seeing none, we have one bid, so we'd like to open the bid now. And then if we could take just a couple minutes of recess so we could have a chance to review it, make a determination if we would make a request to accept and move forward with it or look at additional options.
Mr. Garrett, we don't need a motion to recess at some point. Assume so.
So we have one bid, and that bid is a sealed bid. And we're gonna say after reviewing the cover sheet, the principal office, bidding on this property is, or the representative contact is Paul Wyman, 1533 West Lincoln Road, Kokomo, Indiana, 46902. So we'd ask for a brief recess to review, to see if all the items are covered and then come back with a recommendation.
That grid.
Commissioners, we have reviewed the bid and have found it to be both responsive and responsible in the amount of $455,325. Recommend that you accept the proposal.
That was the minimum bid.
It was the minimum bid, yes.
Is there a motion to accept the bid?
We could make the
Yes.
motion, if there is a motion to accept, make the motion to accept, subject to the negotiation and further approval of the purchase agreement by the redevelopment commission.
Okay. Is there a motion, as Mr. Garrett mentioned there?
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion and a second, Mr. Trillo,
Aye.
Mr. Volk,
yes.
Mr. Fox. Aye. Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Like that.
So the only other thing I would say is under additional business, while it's not listed on the agenda, we've circulated the 2024 year-end report. This is highlights of this report may show up in tonight's State of the County report, may not, because the report just got finished and Carl probably was a little bit more ahead of schedule than I was. Basically, the same format that we use every year, economic overview and the first half. Some of the highlights, Honeysuckle Solar went online last year. GM Samsung broke ground. Obviously, a lot of the steel is going up this year. Amazon Web Service came in, got all its approvals, started construction, and we're well into that. AM General over in the east part of the county did its building expansion for the JLTV project. So that was a big piece. Microsoft in its rezoning on the St. Joe Farm site up in the northeast part of the county. South Bend Chocolate Factory, Indiana Dinosaur Museum breaking ground and going to completion. And then also how that has led to work on the Midwest Continental Divide Trail and some of the other elements out in that area. The rail crossing elimination grant to fund an overpass study at Ash Road and Lincoln Way, that was successful. And so work on that planning study will start this year. So those are just some of the highlight projects. And then under countywide permit activity, we wanted to give you a little bit of overview of just kind of where we've come since 2019. And I think the numbers, especially in the 2024 category, are you know, noteworthy, if nothing else. But to in 2019 for commercial buildings to have had $17 million of permit value to go to $710 million. Manufacturing buildings to go from 800,000 in 2019 to 1.8 billion. Not bad. And then total value of all permits at 208 million in 2019 and then 3 billion in 2024. It would be pretty good. We've maybe hit the marks a little bit. So, but we know that's short term. That's something that we've got to keep working on to keep those kind of numbers or numbers in that range. If you go to the next page, we have South Bend's numbers, just kind of a comparison. So, you know, South Bend County the major players in development in the area. So it's interesting to see how they compare and usually are pretty consistent. But over the last couple of years, the numbers have split a little bit. From a staffing standpoint, 2 staff members, Terry and Frank, and then we also have GIS under our umbrella with currently only 1 employee. John Carlson has moved to Florida, is taking a GIS job down there. Tax abatement, we had 4 tax abatements last year. And so a lot of work was done. I mean, one of those was Amazon. 2 of those are related with Holiday and Lippert in the development on Old Cleveland Road. And then Diversified Real Estate is a project on McKinley in the east side of the county. Commission activity, commission met 17 times last year. And then I think on the last page, we had 23 resolutions approved, 68 contracts, totaling approximately 20.4 million. I think the contracts, if we actually pulled all the construction side contracts, that number is probably a lot higher with the water tower and some of the other projects that were approved, water treatment plant approvals and expansions, things like that. So a lot of work there. And then kind of the last piece, so to speak, future development activities, really that should be for 2025. These are kind of the target areas where we will be working this year. A lot of these relate specifically to the budget that was approved at the beginning of the year and the activities we're currently working on. But just want to give you kind of the overview report. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Other than that, there is no additional business before the commission at this time.
So we'll move to the public comment portion of our meeting. If anyone would like to approach the podium, just please state your name and address, and you're limited to 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Carl Braun Grimm. I'm the Assistant Director of the Public Works for Town of New Carlisle. We have offices at 124 East Michigan Street, New Carlisle, Indiana. Just wanted to briefly talk about that conceptual master plan on Timothy and Dunn. We do think in general it's a good idea to start planning on the front end of these. It leads to better projects in general. I wanted to reiterate what the board had already asked, but we feel that it's vital based on the location of the project, the utilities that are going to be involved, the potential for annexation, and the town is working through a new zoning ordinance, so that may affect some of the design requirements. It's just very vital that we're involved with this discussion and are able to give our input as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Dan Caruso, New Carlisle. I too, it's great to plan. It's nice to plan and get the concepts and how it's going to impact the area, whether it fits into the area. The town has indicated with our comp plan that we can't say it in writing, but we would prefer no more apartments in New Carlisle. Single family dwellings on that property, no problem with that. The residential TIF, and I talked to Carl briefly about it. I was curious as to what a residential TIF could be used for. Bill indicated 13 items. He named some of them, and some that I would be concerned with in case there's going to be roads in this area to be plowed additional. Does that mean we have to hire additional personnel with town? Can money from that residential TIF pay that employee's wages? Can the extra upkeep that's going to come with that area, is that something the TIF can fund? I talked to Dr. White. He says our schools are at capacity. The extra students that would come into that area with their families, are we going to then have to tell the transfer students who are coming into our schools over there to say, sorry, you can't come anymore, go back home? We're going to put some hard choices, but these are, you make these plans now. It's great that we're planning. The nature trails, of course, I'm all for the nature trails. They had talked of running them down the shoulder of Dunn Road and widening that there. And I said, well, what's going to separate them from somebody driving down the road texting on their phone? If you're jogging along the other side of the white line, that person texting from drifting across that white line and whacking you. I say we need to get these nature trails not associated with the roads at all. They need to move off into areas like this. And I think that's a great idea. But again, the town has indicated that with our comprehensive plan that we would like to see single-family dwellings. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, is there anyone online who'd like to address the commission? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
Mr. Falter.
Aye.
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 We are adjourned.
There is not much here to sign.